la séance.
I call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 7 of the Standing Committee on International Human Rights of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development. Pursuant to Standing Order 108-2, the subcommittee is meeting to continue its study of the situation of LGBTQI+ people from Uganda. Today's meeting is being held in a hybrid format in accordance with the standing orders. Members may participate in person or via the Zoom application.
Comments for the benefits of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. For those on Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you can select the appropriate channel for interpretation, either floor English or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Before we welcome our witness, I would like to provide this trigger warning. We will be discussing experiences related to violence. This may be triggering to viewers. If any participants feel distressed or need help, please advise the clerk. For all witnesses and for all members of Parliament, it's important to recognize that these are very difficult discussions. I know we will all be compassionate in our conversation. J'aimerais maintenant souhaiter la bienvenue.
I now wish to welcome our witnesses.
Mr. Paul Canary, from Registering Nursing Assistant. Mr. Nicholas Opio, Founder and former Executive Director, Chapter 4, Uganda. He is joining us by video conference. From Defenders, Hassan Shear, Executive Director, East and Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Project. He is joining us by video conference. From Rainbow Railroad, Madame Rabab Al-Khatib, Deputy Head of Programs, Mr. Deni Wamala, Program Officer Resultment. You welcome all the witnesses. Thanks for being with us. And I would like to give every one of you 5 minutes for introduction and presentation. We will start with Mr. Paul Canary. You will have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Please try to respect the time. Thank you. Mr. Canary, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. My name is Paul Canary. I'm a nursing assistant at NRGH Hospital on Vancouver Island in BC. I'm a Ugandan and former refugee from Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. I'm grateful to be a permanent resident of Canada. After experiencing persecution in Uganda in 2019, I fled to Kenya seeking safety. As soon as I arrived in the camp, I was beaten with sticks, punched in the face, and thrown to the ground along with my fellow LGBTQ refugees for identifying as queer. Security told others in the camp we are homosexuals. Attacks began. I was pushed into a long ditch and my bones in the right leg got broken. Camp shelters belonging to queer refugees were firebombed, including my own shelter. Lesbians were raped. I witnessed the petrol bombing of a transgender refugee at Royal Creighton who died due to second-degree burns. May her soul rest in eternal peace. When queer refugees went to UNHCR to seek for protection, the UNHCR instructed the police to disperse us. The police tear gassed us. This resulted in lots of injuries and a 2-month-old baby died. The police were part of the problem, not the solution. The police undressed us forcefully and they pulled our genitals. Police of Kenya threatened us further that they are going to arrest us and even beat us if we continued identifying as queer. The Kenyan government said they will no longer handle LGBTQ refugee cases. When I was privately sponsored by Reaching Out, Assisting Refugees, ROA in Nanaimo, Vancouver Island, I got some relief and regained some hope. Informal estimates are that there are about 500 queer refugees in Gorom refugee settlement in South Sudan and about 150 refugees in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. Due to increased attacks in Kakuma refugee camp, queer refugees fled to the neighboring South Sudan for safety, which is another dangerous place for queer persons. Gorom refugee camp is characterized by insecurity, lawlessness, abduction, and homophobia. Queer shelters have also been destroyed in Gorom. There has been much verbal and physical violence targeting queer refugees, particularly those that identify as transgender and lesbian. Police say they won't offer protection to homosexuals in both Kenya and South Sudan. In Kenya, there is no referral by the UNHCR for resettlement currently. Kenya government officials openly told us that no queer refugee will again be resettled to safety because they post a lot on social media and expose every insecurity issue that happens in the camp. Vulnerable refugees in Kenya, sorry about that. Vulnerable queer refugees in Kenya are paying a huge price for speaking up, while non-queer refugees are being resettled through the UNHCR system. Most queer refugees can't work due to discrimination, threats, and assaults on their lives, forcing some to participate in survival prostitution. Kenya refuses to provide queer refugee recognition, which results in no exit permits for those without passports. There is a limit on the number of people UNHCR and Rainbow Road are able to refer. This creates many years of long waits for refugees. UNHCR South Sudan has repeatedly told queer refugees that they can't be referred because of limited availability of the resettlement opportunities. Canada must act now to protect these vulnerable populations. You have the power to save lives today, not years from now. The number of refugee resettlement slots have been dramatically decreased in the last budget. The government of Canada can solve this by directly increasing the resettlement opportunities for the LGBTQ refugees to save their lives. Just past this February, Canada committed to resettling 4,700 refugees fleeing Sudan by the end of 2026. I'm asking this committee to kindly ensure that at least 650 of those spaces are specifically allocated to queer refugees currently trapped in Gorom refugee settlement in South Sudan and Kakuma camps. They are already part of the Sudan crisis. They simply need you to recognize that their persecution is just as urgent as the conflict itself. The Rainbow Refugee Assistance Program allows sponsorship agreement holders to create sponsorship groups for queer refugees additional to their annual quota. This program agreement expires in 2029, but should be made permanent. Canada could create an emergency response for hundreds of Ugandan queer refugees now in extreme difficult situations in refugee camps in South Sudan and Kenya. Canada did this for the queer Chechens in 2017, and in 2022 relocated more than 600 queer Afghan refugees to Canada. Canada could diplomatically ask the government of Kenya to recognize queer refugees to allow resettlement. Most importantly, the IRCC should expedite queer refugee cases from South Sudan and Kenya, since those persons face daily risks, including physical harm and death. I thank you.
And now I would like to invite Mr. Nicola Opeo to take the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify today on the situation of the LGBTI community in Uganda. I thank you for your continued attention to this matter. I thank the people of Canada for their support to the Ugandan LGBTI community and movement. I have been providing legal representation for the LGBTI community in Uganda for well over a decade and a half. As a founder and former executive director of Chapter 4 Uganda, a civil rights organization, I have been working closely with the LGBTI community. I was the lead lawyer in 2014 in the successful challenge to the country's anti-gay legislation. I am now part of the legal team that is challenging the current 2023 anti-gay law in the Ugandan Supreme Court. Chair and members of the committee, since the enactment of the Anti-Homosexuality Act in Uganda. And contrary to popular expectation, there has not been a large number of court prosecutions of LGBTI individuals in the country. The government of Uganda has issued non-binding circulars to limit court prosecutions of individuals under the law. For instance, the Director of Public Prosecution issued a circular on August the 2nd, 2023, titled Management of Cases with Charges under the Anti-Homosexuality Act. This circular required all files regarding LGBTI individuals to be submitted to the DPP's headquarters and to undertake an organized sensitization training for prosecutors on how to handle cases of LGBTI individuals. The Ministry of Health issued a circular as well on August the 8th, 2023, emphasizing the provision and access to health services to all people without discrimination. The Attorney General also reversed an earlier circular by the National Council for Science and Technology that required researchers to disclose the sexual identity, the identity of their research subjects and their sexual orientation and gender identity. These circulars are not laws. They cannot and do not replace the laws enacted by Parliament. The possibility of enforcement of the LGBTI law in Uganda remains an ever-present threat to the LGBTI community, a real possibility hanging over their heads, creating an unsettling uncertainty. The steps mentioned above were taken in large part due to the sustained pressure and condemnation of Uganda by the international community, the challenge to the laws in court, and the robust advocacy of the community and their allies against the law. However, police and state agencies sanctioned arrests and intimidation continue to be pervasive. These arrests do not end up in court prosecutions, but they often involve prolonged detentions in police cells, extortion, intimidation, and in many cases, public outing of individuals. Many individuals who are arrested are subjected to forced, non-consensual annual exams that include insertion into their annual cavities of objects, often in the presence of several individuals. The results of these unlawful examinations are then made public. The practice has no legal basis, and as such, any evidence obtained is inadmissible in a court of law for being obtained by means of torture. Such evidence is incapable of proving anything. They are without any basis in science. The sole objective is to dehumanize LGBTI individuals and to degrade them in society. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the most debilitating and perhaps the most tragic form of persecution of LGBTI individuals in Uganda may not be in a court of law, but in the social terror unleashed on LGBTI individuals as a result of the enactment of this law. These are often unreported. They happen in private spaces, but do so in drip fashion. They are the lived experiences of individuals that express themselves in many ways, first within families, close relatives, and within wider societies. Documentation of such abuse since the law has passed has shown increased cases of homelessness due to family expulsion, due to expulsion from their own communities by people in the community, due to denial of rental property and evictions by landlords for those who already have house. And yet the world has moved on. Attention to the situation in Uganda has waned.
Can you please wrap it up? Time is over, but take a few seconds to wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This challenge to the sweeping anti-gay law continues in the Supreme Court, but we have limited hope in that legal solution resolving the problem. We require the political commitment of governments such as Canada to ensure that LGBTI individuals are saved. Supporting frontline activists who are doing the work to provide safety for those in country would be important for the government of Canada to provide. I thank Mr. Chair, and I yield back to you.
Thank you. And now I invite Mr. Hassan Sheil to take the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, members of the subcommittee, all present in the room. I bring to you warm greetings from warm Kampala. I am Hassan Shire, Executive Director, Divan Defenders, as the Chair have said. Divan Defenders has celebrated 20 years of presence and work in this sub-region only few weeks back in Kampala, providing protection and the lives of human rights defenders across the African continent. In Uganda, as my previous brother Nicholas Obio have said, there is a law, current law, the Anti-Homosexuality Act 2023, which criminalizes LGBTIQ plus rights. Petitions was filed, and he is part of the people who filed in the Constitutional Court of Uganda, challenging the law on ground, including violation of equality, privacy, among others. The Constitutional Court upheld the most provisions of the Act, and a bill was lodged again in the Supreme Court of Uganda seeking to declare the law null and void. The appeal is pending in the Supreme Court. A similar law passed in 2014 was nullified by the Constitutional Court of Uganda on procedural grounds. In August 2023, the Director General of Health Services in Uganda issued a statement to all health workers asserting that access to health services is a fundamental right for all people in Uganda without discrimination. In September, the Director of Public Prosecution files related to the Anti-Homosexuality Act be sent to DPP headquarters for guidance before judges are by Human Rights Awareness and Promotion Forum, local NGO in Kampala, indicate that there has been a total 926 cases of LGBTIQ plus motivated violations reported from June 2023 to October 2025, which affected 1,240 persons. Lately, homophobia and transphobia has become widespread, with violations against the LGBTIQ community in Uganda mostly emanating from non-state actors, particularly communities they live among us, rather than from the government-sanctioned actors. Many of these violations remain unreported. The risk faced by LGBTIQ rights persons, including eviction, physical assault, blackmail, and legal persecution, discrimination and exclusion, online harassment. There has been cases of LGBTI persons found murdered, with the reasons for the killing not yet revealed by the police. The killing is believed to be happening because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. The situation has further exposed members of LGBTIQ community to a vulnerable social and economic life. Many are unemployed because of discrimination and persecution at the workplaces. Many have been forced into exile to seek asylum in other countries, including Canada. It's important to note that majority are still in Uganda and in the sub-region and remain vulnerable. The anti-gender policies globally announced and freezing of international aid by the current US administration appear to have emboldened the anti-rights sentiment and crippled community organizations in Uganda. A case in point is Uganda Key Population Consortium, UKPC, a Ugandan government partner organization which was engaging delivery of health services with LGBTI community persons across Uganda, has experienced 70% of their programs impacted by the cut of the USAID money. Delivery and access to health services by LGBTIQ persons in Uganda, post-US funding cuts was impacted upon, and the current UN reform agenda in New York, which envisages the UN AIDS will be dismantled totally next year, will have a severe impact on LGBTIQ persons in Uganda.
Can you please wrap it up? I give you a few seconds to wrap it up. Time is over.
Mr. Chair, I want to note that Global Affairs Canada hasn't been active in this protection of LGBTI persons in Uganda and the wider sub-region. So I urge you, with your committee, to recommend avail Canadian foreign aid to provide comprehensive funding to the structures both at the UN and within the LGBTI community in Uganda. Lastly, facilitate safe passage for LGBTIQ individuals who are fleeing persecution by redoubling the support given to LGBTI individuals who are seeking asylum in Canada through strengthening engagement with organizations working directly with them, particularly the Rainbow Railroad. Thank you.
And now I would like to invite Madame Rabab Al-Khatib from Rainbow Railroad to take the floor for 5 minutes. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's actually my colleague who's going to go ahead with the statement first.
Mr. Mamala, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Chair of the committee and members, thank you for inviting Rainbow Railroad to deliver testimony on the situation of LGBTQI Ugandans. I was born and raised in Uganda and spent many years working as an activist with LGBTQ rights. My work placed me in direct contact with the regressive systems, institutions, actors that shape LGBTQI persecution across the region. I also sit before you as someone who was forcibly displaced as a result of this persecution. Today, I'm a proud Canadian with strong commitment to the LGBTQ community in Uganda. Chair, Rainbow Railroad operates globally at the intersection of forced displacement and LGBTQI persecution. Over the past 3 years, Uganda has become one of the most significant drivers of our increasing caseload. Since 2023, we have received over 3,000 requests for help from Uganda, including a 2,057% spike in March 2023 when the anti-homosexuality bill was introduced. This is not an isolated reality. Uganda's crisis is part of a coordinated regional anti-LGBTQ movement, mirrored in laws, rhetoric, and enforcement practices emerging across East Africa. The impact on everyday life is profound. LGBTQI Ugandans report police intimidation, denial of legal protection, forced eviction, firing, and barriers to health care. To respond to this, Rainbow Railroad has built 15 partnerships with Ugandan organizations since March 2023, collectively supporting over 2,500 individuals with shelter, relocation, legal aid, medical care, basic needs, and mental health assistance. For many, however, escape from Uganda is the only life-saving option, but this also leads directly to new risks. Chair, in 2025, we tracked 162 Ugandans in Kenya and 123 in Southern Sudan, alongside others dispersed across the region. These individuals often find themselves in environments where the same pattern of homophobia, transphobia, and violence continue. In Kakuma refugee camp, Ugandans are frequently profiled as LGBTQI, resulting in targeted violence. Many have spent as many as 10 years without documentation or a pathway to durable protection. In Nairobi, the absence of legal status forces individuals into homelessness, unsafe work, and exploitative environments. Conditions in South Sudan's Gorom camp are similarly precarious and lack of any LGBTQI competent protection. These realities are echoed in our queer forced displacement initiative consultations, where refugees consistently identify 3 barriers. 1, prolonged or stalled registration and refugee status determination processes. 2, continued exposure to violence in camps and urban settings. And 3, lack of any credible pathway out. Many refugees describe their situation as being trapped between danger in the camps and danger at home. The challenge is not simply flight from Uganda, but a lack of access to protection pathways for LGBTQI persons across the region. Chair, Canada has the tools to address these gaps in a targeted and effective way. Rainbow Railroad offers the following recommendations to the Government of Canada. 1, expand the government-assisted refugees partnership with Rainbow Railroad to include a dedicated allocation for Ugandan LGBTQ refugees in Kenya, South Sudan, and neighboring countries in the region. 2, expand funding for Canada's LGBTQI International Assistance Program that sustains the Queer Forced Displacement Initiative, which recognizes LGBTQI forced displacement as a priority within international human rights programming. 3, establish a standing rapid response mechanism for sudden anti-LGBTQ crackdowns across all Canadian missions. I'm here in Canada because of the compassion of the Canadian government. The individuals currently stranded in camps and cities across East Africa need that compassion today. Canada's leadership, applied through existing mechanisms and informed by on-the-ground expertise, can create the pathways to protection that LGBT Ugandans need today. I thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Khatib, you would like to make a statement?
Do I have? It's not a statement. I can wait for the questions and I can answer, or I can also add a couple of points. I don't know if we have.
No, you will answer the question after. If you would like to say something now, I give you the floor.
Okay, I mean, thank you so much. I'm always lucky with more time, I think, in the committees. Hearing all the testimonies, I think I have to say that between what we have seen already, Mr. President, through the cases that we have received from Ugandans in Uganda or Ugandans outside of Uganda, mainly Kenya and South Sudan, the situation is dire. LGBTQI plus Ugandans in Uganda and outside of Uganda need support. I will just double down on the recommendations of Rainbow Railroad. Mainly, there is an opportunity here to grab, which is the partnership on the GAR, the government-assisted refugee, with Rainbow Railroad, in which the government of Canada has already reiterated their commitment to human rights. And I think there is a way today to increase the resources and increase the slots of resettlement to make sure that we are supporting the most at-risk LGBTQI plus Ugandans, whether in Uganda or outside of Uganda. I'll stop here, and then I'm happy also to answer more questions. Thank you so much.
And do we have another witness? He might be able to join us in order to do the testing. I would like to suspension. No? He doesn't want. No. Okay. Resume the meeting. He said we're expecting him to be. Now it seems to be he's not there yet. So we continue. I would like to thank all witnesses, and now we'll open the floor for a question and answer. And we would like to start with Madame Tamara Kranis. The floor for you for 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank all the witnesses for describing the situation so clearly. And particularly, I want to thank Mr. Canary and Mr. Wamala for sharing their personal experiences in Uganda. Everything that we know and everything that we've heard about the situation on the ground in Uganda paints it as a situation where fear and precarity dominate, and where people are struggling to lead lives that are safe and fruitful. I just want to ask, just as a start, and maybe I'll ask Mr. Wamala this particular question. There's about 50 million people in Uganda. So it's a country that's more or less, it's a little bit, in population-wise, it's a little bit bigger than Canada. But what is the, how many people are there at risk in Uganda?
Thank you, Tamara. That's a question that always gets us, using percentages because we've not had a census to say that these are the number of LGBT people. It's not even a recognized community in the country. But we know that at least 1% of the population have an inclination or at least identify in some sort as LGBTQI plus people. So I would say about 4 million Ugandans are at risk right now. Most of those are in hiding. Most of those are in the closet. But I would say at least 4 million people in the country right now.
In terms of the active population, how big is the crisis in Uganda? Sorry, that's what I meant. That's what I meant to ask.
Thank you. Right now, since 2003, we've seen an escalation in reporting in terms of evictions, in terms of police arrests, in terms of police in the country, and these are in the hundreds. For example, in March 2023, when the bill was passed, the second bill, we had at least 800 people reporting at least evictions or arrests or an intimidation of some kind in less than 3 months after the bill passed. So these numbers keep on fluctuating, but they're in the high hundreds and sometimes over 1,000, over 1,000, depending on what the political rhetoric is and how much the police is going after people.
And in terms of your experience with Rainbow Railroad, one of the things that we know happens is that when opportunities come to leave, when opportunities come to go to a place of safety, the number of applications go up dramatically. You said you've received 3,000 applications since 2023. Is that number growing? Has it stabilized? What's the situation there?
Thank you. In matters of number, what we know for sure is between 2023 and until late 2025, we have received more than 2,800 requests for help from Ugandans in Uganda. And we are also receiving requests for help from people, from Ugandans outside of Uganda, of course. Mainly, we speak about the two biggest numbers are from South Sudan and Kenya. These numbers did stabilize a little bit, so we saw a big spike when the bill was passed, of course, in 2023. But up until now, even when LGBT people move outside of Uganda, they move to find safety. But reality is the danger actually exacerbates. And with the displacement, there is another layer of protection that is needed for LGBT people that is not that we don't see.
And that's the protection that's in the camp. So just to be sort of a little bit more specific about it, it sounds like it's 2,800 people in Uganda, and then an additional cohort in the camps.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's of the probably several million people in Uganda who are queer and who are facing the anxiety and the fear of being found out or being exposed, and the things that they could lose under those circumstances. So if I could just turn back to Mr. Canary, can you share a little bit more of what it's like to be in that situation, of what the situation in the camps is like, and what the situation also is like in Uganda in terms of what it does for family dynamics and what people's lives are like?
Thank you so much, Tamara. Firstly, it all starts from home. Maybe your parents find out, or the community, that you're gay. You're subjected to persecution. Some people end up losing their lives. And then from here, people run to neighboring countries, particularly Kenya, in Kakuma refugee camp, and South Sudan in Gorom camp. So from here, we are promised registration. The UNHCR receives us, they register us well, and then they promise us safety. You are going to be safe. Of course, as UNHCR, it's an international organized organization. It's a refugee organization. Now, when we reach these camps, they say everything is going to be okay, but it's a different story. I myself, as I told you earlier, as soon as I arrived in the camp, I got attacked. even more than I was attacked back in my home country. I faced extreme homophobia. My leg got broken. I feel traumatized to death to share my story right now. I saw people getting petrol bombed and losing lives in the camp. We can't access better medication in the camp. There is discrimination by the health officials who are meant to provide services equally to all refugees. There is a lot of persecution, even by the people mandated to protect us, the police. I was assaulted by the police several times on camera by the police, and they told me, "You are gay. Kenya doesn't allow homosexuality. Please go back to your countries." So a lot of stuff is happening in camps, and this brings to an increase in homophobia cases back from Uganda because of this law that was passed. So how is life in the camp like? It's horrible, I can say, Tamara. It's so horrible. People have sleepless nights because every time will be, oh, I'm going to be attacked by someone. I'm going to be attacked. We can't sleep. We sleep in shifts from 7 to 2 and then from 2 to 7. It's not easy in the camp. And then the UNHCR tells us no country is ready to resettle you simply because they are not open. But yet we see other non-LGBTQ refugees, I can mention Somalians, Congolese, other non-LGBTQ refugees are being resettled every day. We see flights. Oh, this person has a flight. They're moving in big numbers. But the queer people are being discriminated. I don't understand. It's so horrible on ground, Tamara.
So can you talk about your journey to Canada? What was it like? How did ROAR identify you? That's the Reaching Out Refugees. How did ROAR identify you? What was your journey like? When did you first feel safe?
Thank you so much for that question. ROAR identified me in 2019 November after reading my story online. They saw me. We got in touch. I explained to them, because I used to post a lot on social media. I used to act like an advocate for my fellow LGBTQ persons. I know still we were threatened by the UNHCR and the police not to post because it will be deserving for them, for the donors to see, oh, people are getting attacked. Oh, how will donors, give money to UNHCR if people are being attacked? So they used to discourage us from posting on social media, and this is what is happening in South Sudan right now. So when ROAR came in 2019, they identified me and Mehdi. I got a chance, and they opted to resettle me to safety. That's when the hope came in. I was like, oh, I think I'm hopeful that I'll be safe tomorrow. Because despite all these private sponsorship options, still I got lots of attacks from the refugees and lots of discrimination. So the process ran, and I'm so grateful for Canada government because I got through the process so quick. The visa official really showed my story, saw my story. He saw what I was going through. He asked for my social media. I gave it to him. And I was like, oh, this is so bad. That was the time when my leg got broken. I was on stitches. I was so, in bad situation by then. And in a few months, I was referred to the IOM, International Organization for Migration, for my medicals and securities checks were done. And my visa was issued in 2021, September. Unfortunately, because I was this vocal advocate for the people, the government of Kenya and the UNHCR said, I will not fly. So it was another battle for me to engage in. They kept on pressing me.
Can you wrap it? We almost exceed 2 minutes that time.
Okay. Let me wind up. So ROAR, Reaching Out Assisting Refugees, is an organization in Naimo. They do resettle LGBTQ refugees from across the globe through private sponsorships. So it's an organization I came through, and I started feeling safe the day I landed in Canada. I really felt safe, and I'm so grateful to date. I'm working, and I'm a permanent resident. I'm giving to Canada. I'm a registered nursing assistant. I help our seniors in long-term care, and also in hospital. Those who know Nemo General Hospital, it's where I work, and I'm helping our seniors there. Thank you.
Thank you, and we are happy to have you in Canada in a safe, welcoming country. You're welcome. Thank you. And now I would like to invite Madame Vandenbel to take the floor for 7 minutes, please.
Chair, excuse me, and thank you to all of our witnesses. Paul, thank you for telling your story. It has impact, so I appreciate that. I do want to start my questions with Nicholas Opio. You said something in your testimony about external pressure. I mean, you fought successfully the law in Uganda against LGBTI in 2014, and I know that the 2023 law is right now in the courts. To what extent does something like this committee, the airing of these things, pressure from outside, to what extent does that make a difference?
Well, thank you very much, Madam Vanderbilt, and thank you, Mr. Chair. External pressure perhaps is the only thing that has kept many LGBTI folks in Uganda safe. If it were not because of external pressure, worse things could have happened to so many people in the country. It shines a light and creates restraint on the part of the authorities in Uganda. And in moments when this pressure is waning, you begin to see worse rhetoric and abuse of the LGBTI community. So the pressure is perhaps the only thing, the only place where many LGBTI folks can speak. I doubt if an LGBTI person can address the Ugandan parliament or a committee of parliament in the way that we are addressing you now. So external pressure on these platforms, in many cases, are the only place to hear the plight of LGBTI individuals. Secondly, external pressure is also the only pressure that has helped in so many cases where people are being prosecuted. When they know that people are watching, when they know that the cases are being reported, there is fairer treatment in an already bad situation for many LGBTI folks in Uganda.
I do recall in 2020 when you were part of the World Movement for Democracy, and as a lawyer, when you were arrested, there was a tremendous amount of mobilization for your release as well. I wonder if you could tell us, because we've heard in a number of countries that there's a weaponization of the law, that when people are being charged because of their human rights work, they will use other kinds of things like tax evasion or in your case, money laundering or trumped up charges. We've seen that in the Philippines with Maria Ressa and others. Can you tell us how the authorities are using that kind of legal repression to target not just people, LGBTI people, but also their legal counsel?
So the law in Uganda and the court systems in Uganda have become a political tool. Because first of all, we must recognize that in large part, the problem of the LGBTI community is also a political problem. Because the issue of the LGBTI community has been used by politicians in moments of political convenience to attack their opponents, to characterize the opponents as being funded by foreign LGBTI groups. The intention is to drive the population against you. This has also happened to allies and allied organizations. In our own case, part of the reason that we were suspended and closed by the government of Uganda in 2021 was that we were working with the LGBTI community. The accusations against us for money laundering was because the funding was coming from an American LGBTI funding organization called the American Jewish World Service. And so the law and court systems, which are supposed to be tools of protection, have become tools of punishment and persecution of the LGBTI community. I've appeared in many cases in which judges and magistrates quote the Bible, not the law, in condemning LGBTI folks to imprisonment or to detention. And so in so many instances, the use of the LGBTI small minority in Uganda as a political tool has become commonplace. Just 2 days ago, the Speaker of the National Assembly, who was the Speaker of the House and championed the passing of the law, has been using the LGBTI issue to attack her opponents on a campaign platform. And so this issue has been weaponized. This issue has been used in so many other ways, much to the detriment of the country's LGBTI community. And if I may seek your indulgence to make a small comment on the previous question on numbers. I think Uganda is not just about the numbers. The numbers might be small. It is what it means for the region. We are seeing the spread of anti-LGBTI laws across the region, starting from Uganda. So whether it works or fails in Uganda will determine how far this will spread in the region. And I think that we must treat Uganda as a test case to make the point that LGBTI folks have allies and can be protected, rather than focus on the numbers of LGBTI folks in Uganda, which is difficult to know. People are closeted. I have so many people who have come to me for legal representation who are in heterosexual relationships, but are maintaining quiet gay relationships. So you can't even know the number because nobody counts and people are afraid to come out.
And thank you for your perseverance in that. I know I don't have much time, but I'd like to ask Mr. Shire also a question about what you said, that it isn't just the legal authorities, but of course all of this political inflammation also creates a lot of social repression. And I just wanted to ask you, what is the capacity or willingness of the authorities to be able to protect LGBTI members of the community when they are facing this kind of repression from others in society?
Thank you, Anna. You see, Anita, the societies here are 98% homophobic, and this is a fact which has been established by BBC, by other, neutral bodies, that they truly hate LGBTI people. Society, these children who are now here, Dennis and Paul, born to, from parents to neighbors, to border riders, to schoolmates, to the principals in the schools, to universities, to workmates, they all revolt whatever you mention the word LGBTI people. Therefore, in a situation like that, if you turn to the disinformation and misinformation being spread by people in authority to drum up a so-called support to appeal those kind of negative attitude toward the LGBTI persons, you could see that there is no law and order people who may be.
Can you wrap it up, please? We exceed the time by 1 minute. Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead if you second to wrap.
Okay, Mr. Chair. There won't be any because the law and order people, they maintain the order in other places, not guarding the safety and security of the LGBTI people. So they are vulnerable.
Et maintenant, j'invite M. Brunel-Duceppe à prendre la parole.
And now I would like to recognize Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. You have 7 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much to our witnesses. This is a highly important topic, and we are here to try to do something to change something in this scene here, this snapshot. My question is for Rainbow Railroad, Mr. Wamala. I think this was your third recommendation, emergency programs available to come into effect when there are sudden repression efforts, repression against LGBTQI plus communities. So indeed, I think that we should be prepared But there are two issues in your recommendation. First, we don't have such a rapid intervention program. And second, your very fear that repression may get worse in Uganda, so you feel that there's urgency. That's what I understand from your suggestion.
I'm gonna pick the answer on that. Thank you so much. We are not suggesting any new mechanism with the third recommendation in this in here. Rather, we are capitalizing on whatever already the Canadian government has around the world as missions, and we are asking or recommending for a trigger that would emphasize on the crisis once it happens. And once the crisis happens, we are recommending mainly three things, or this can be done through three other ways. The first one is to disseminate the message to the missions of Canada around the world, to expedite cases of LGBTQI plus people once we have a crisis happening or a crackdown. The second one is more related to documentation, and it's to temporarily ease or relax the documentation that we usually, or the government of Canada usually requests from people, because people under persecution may not be able to access public institutions. In addition to focus also on explaining to the missions around the world the importance of flagging SOGSC cases. So we are not by any chance speaking about any new structure, but rather we are building on the structures that the government of Canada has and the missions around the world, but with more focus and specifically speaking around the need to identify the high-risk cases of LGBTQI plus people and expedite the processing of these cases.
Et présentement, est-ce que vous...
And at present, are you running into obstacles when it comes to resettling people here in Canada? And if so, what are the difficult points, and how could we improve things here to improve your work as an organization?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, again, I'm going to stress again on the partnership between Rainbow Railroad and the Government of Canada when it comes to the government-assisted refugee, through which Rainbow Railroad is able to resettle today 250 plus LGBTQI plus persons, or we refer them to the Canadian government for resettlement per year. I would say the very first obstacle is that the needs are huge, the spots are very limited. One of the main requests, I would say, or recommendations from Rainbow Railroad would be to add more spots so that we can resettle more people who are in need, especially while we are looking at a world where more and more queer people are facing crisis. That's the first one. The second one, I would say, also is more related to resources. So the spots is one thing, but also the spots comes with an investment from the Canadian government as well, to be able to process those cases. Yet, I mean, with the challenges, I want to speak about an opportunity. I mean, when we speak about this partnership between Rainbow Railroad and the Government of Canada, Rainbow Railroad is mainly the one who is doing the verification process, is the one who is preparing the case for resettlement, and in a way or another, I think we need, like, there is an opportunity for the Government of Canada to capitalize on this, because civil society is taking the biggest part of the work of resettlement, and then if we push more cases and more people towards resettlement to Canada, that, I mean, this kind of partnership with the civil society is really an opportunity to capitalize on it, to be able to find the most at-risk people and expedite the processing time as well.
Merci beaucoup pour ça.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Mr. Kanyamu, thank you so much for your testimony. Very difficult to hear all this, but it's absolutely necessary that we in the committee hear this, and also that the government at higher levels hear this testimony as well. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story with us. So you say that you did feel safe, perhaps for the first time in a long time when you arrived here. Do you still receive threats over social media, for example, online? Are you still living with threats, even if you're here living in Canada?
Thank you so much. Well, some time ago, I received threats because even when I came here, I continued advocating for the LGBTQ community back home in Africa and also the rest of the countries that persecute the queer people. I can say I'm safe here, and the threats in Canada, I haven't received any on ground, except on social media, a few, but I'm safe in Canada, I can confidently say. And maybe before I wind up, I would kindly request this committee. It will be proper, or it will be right, or I'm just kind of requesting this committee if you could at least grant more settlement slots to the LGBTQ refugees, particularly in South Sudan and Kenya, because those people are really going through hardships right now. And also expediting their settlement for vulnerable LGBTQ persons already in the pipeline, because we have people who are privately sponsored right now, but the cases are taking way too long. Despite the fact that they're sponsored, they are being attacked. I have a friend in Gorom right now who got attacked yesterday. He's all bleeding. I can't share pictures because they're gross right now. And also urge the government of Kenya to resume LGBTQ registration to ease resettlement. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Vinel. Vous avez passé le temps par 1 minute.
Thank
Ça
you
va.
very much. You've gone over time by 1 minute, but that's fine because given the situation, I don't want to interrupt people. Now, Mr. Hamid Zubelia, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses.
And for your personal courage, and we respect your ordeal that you have gone through to come to Canada, for those of you who migrated here. I wanted to just touch upon, we are focusing today on Uganda, but also South Sudan and Kenya have been mentioned. And if we can just, for a brief period of time, elaborate what's happening there in these two countries. Maybe Paul, maybe you could start, and if we can turn it over to the legal experts also, if they want to add something. Paul, do you want to share a bit about that?
So much. As I said, most of the LGBTQ refugees we are discussing about today are from Uganda. A big percentage is from Uganda. So the reason why South Sudan and Kenya is appearing in this talk is because when they leave Uganda, they go to refugee camps in South Sudan and Kenya. So there is that migration of LGBTQ persons who have left their countries or Uganda, and then they go to Kenya and South Sudan because they can't be refugees like in their own countries. So, yeah, that's why we're talking about them. The situation there, as I've said, it's bad because they're getting attacked every day. The police is checking people's phones, by the way. If they find you with any LGBTQ stuff in your phone, you either sleep on the police barracks and go back home the next day after you've been beaten. And there is forced examinations, despite the fact that they are registered and allowed in that country. So the police still takes this mileage, like, no, it's a sovereign country. We don't allow homosexuality here. Take your habit anywhere else. In Kenya, I was accused of being an agent of COVID-19. They said LGBTQ persons are agents of COVID-19. It's you people creating problems for us in the world. You are gay and you bring in COVID-19 and other issues. So that's how it is in these camps.
You mentioned that the people who are supposed to be protecting society are not doing their job. We heard a lot about police in we've heard a lot about police, but how about other humanitarian workers? Are you finding that's also the case for other humanitarian workers?
Thank you. For other humanitarian workers are trying to do their job, I can say that. I can give them credit for that, like case assessments and other stuff. However, yes, you go to some other organizations and they be like, no, you're gay. And our case is, no, we help refugees, but not specifically the gay people. Do you mind changing from being gay to straight? How about if you change your case from being LGBTQ to another case so that you can get resettled? Because they can't resettle you because you're gay. So they do it undercover to save their faces, of course. As an organization, as an international NGO, you're not supposed to discriminate, of course. You'll be maybe, you face the, yeah. So these other organizations are trying, though they're not doing the needful, I can say, they're not doing much because they have, they have that element of, this person is gay or these people are gay. And they quote Bibles. They say, no, in the Bible chapter this, it says this and that. So please, you need to change. I know, yes, I'm going to give you hope, but you need to change from this to this. And then with the police, it's direct confrontation with LGBTQ person. They don't fear, they do it openly in front of UNHCR because the police is part of government and they're sovereign in that place. So they say, no, we don't allow LGBTQ persons here. And if you register any case as an LGBTQ person, the case will not be followed up at all. Yeah.
Thank you. And in the some time that I have left, Ms. Al-Khatib, I know you wanted to share something in your opening remarks. If you have anything that you want to add, I want to give that time to you right now.
Thank you so much. Actually, I'll add on the situation of the camps, if I may, a little bit. To the point of Paul Canary, what we know through the Queer Forced Displacement Initiative consultation, in which the last roundtable happened in Kenya, actually, and where LGBTQI plus refugees from Uganda were present around the table. We know that the problem of documentation or being undocumented, some people cannot get registered for more than 10 years. If we look at what this means no rights to work. This means they need to live under the radar. In addition to all what Paul Canary has also mentioned, and we know it and we saw it. This. If this means anything, this means that there is a possibility that people are also being pushed into sex work to survive, for example, or into being exploited just because they are part of the LGBTQI community. All of this to say, finding protection pathways, finding resettlement pathways to LGBTQI plus people from Uganda, be it in Kenya or South Sudan, is really a matter of life or death for those people over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Zubairi. And now I invite Madame Kronis to take the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I really want to thank both the representatives from Rainbow Railroad and Paul for the testimony that you've provided so far. What I'd actually like to do with this round is I'd like to turn back to Mr. Opio in Uganda, because one of the reasons I was asking about the numbers is because in the short term and in the emergency situation, we can help bring people out and we can help rescue people. But in the long term, something has to change in Uganda. And so I wanted to ask a little bit more about that longer term question. When is the Supreme Court of Uganda, the appeal is ongoing? Is there a sense of when the decision is going to come out? If it's positive, will it make a difference? I know that there are lawmakers in Uganda who are trying to make change. We're actually hoping to have some of them come to this committee. How are they doing? Are they having an impact? What are the barriers to making change both legally and in civil society in Uganda? It's a big question, but I'm hoping that you might be able to tackle it and, if possible, solve all the problems in within 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Chair, the Ugandan courts are not known for being expeditious in the way that they dispose of cases. They are very, very slow. We had hoped that the Ugandan Supreme Court would have heard us by now and render a decision before the elections, but that is now unlikely. That situation is now being complicated further by the impending retirement of the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice retires on the 18th of January. And so we do not think that the court is going to hear us any time soon. We don't have a timeline. It is difficult to guess when the court might even hear the case. Secondly, the government side, the Attorney General, has not submitted his pleadings to the Supreme Court. The petitioners who have appealed this case have complied with all the directions that the court has given them, but the Attorney General has not prioritized this case and has not responded to the submissions that have been filed by the groups that went to court. So we have no idea when this case will be heard and a judgment rendered. In any case, I'm not optimistic that we shall get a positive judgment, because if the recent trends are anything to go by, evangelical groups have infiltrated the court so much so that decisions coming from that court now reflect more dogma than legal positions. But nonetheless, we will fight on, hoping that the court can hear us. Now, long term, what can make a difference? I don't think the nullification of the law will make a big difference. It will no doubt provide reprieve and some sort of ease for many people. But what remains an ever-present threat is the radicalized population. Anti-LGBTI sentiments run very deep in our society, from the lowest level to the highest level. Just 2 months ago, university students were trying to lynch their own colleagues on suspicion of being suspicion of being gay. A high school in Western Uganda, the same thing happened. So the long-term focus has to be on changing narratives and has to target, in my view, the youngest population in our country, because it's going to take a generational effort for this debate to take a turn.
Along that line, just in the few seconds that I have left on this, because I know that time is getting short, the picture you're painting is quite dire. There is no relief coming from the law. There is a society that is quite entrenched in terms of anti-LGBTQ plus QI plus values. Are there allies? Where is the hope? In addition to the young people are always the hope, but where's the hope? What is the landscape like for allies?
So we have begun to see parents of LGBTI folks coming out to advocate for their own children. It is difficult to argue against a mother who says, that is my child. I love them the way they are. That is how they were born. That is who they are. And so groups like mothers of LGBTI kids need to be supported, because they provide new perspectives that is difficult to argue against. We have begun to see industries such as the creative industry. The creative industry is the largest employer of LGBTI folks in Uganda. People who are doing the arts, people who are doing work, in saloons. And so we've got to amplify that kind of industry and make sure that they continue doing what they are doing. Lastly,
can you wrap it up, please? Time is over. We exceed.
Yes. Lastly, I think that there is also a growing community of local NGOs and non-profit organizations, many of it including preachers, groups like Defend Defenders, who are non-LGBTI groups but work with the community. These groups are groups that give me hope that over time we shall make a movement and overcome the challenges that we have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. À vous la parole, Monsieur Brunel-Dessep. 5 minutes.
Mr. Brunel-Dessep, you have the floor. 5 minutes, please. Thank you very much. I would just like to pick up on the question put by Tamara, put to Mr. Opio. Could you tell the committee, in your opinion, how the international community, including Canada, could help in a real way legal players in the field like yourself in Uganda?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think Hassan has mentioned the need to provide increased support to frontline organizations that are working to promote the rights of LGBTI folks. Those groups come under attack as well, and those groups require attention, requires your support as well. And this support may not necessarily be resources. It could also be platforming them and giving them a voice and space to share their experiences working as allies. When other allies see allies being supported, they get encouraged and they will be able to join the cause. The second one is that we have got to use multinational institutions such as the World Bank, where the Canada has, some sort of support, some sort of voice, some sort of access, because these multinational institutions have proven to be, in many cases, very helpful. UNAIDS in Uganda has been one of the most important allies to the community and to the allies of the community. And so working with international institutions, we can amplify their role, make them more active. And lastly, if I may say, Canada and other countries in the Global West have accountability mechanisms, target individuals who are promoting anti-LGBTI sentiment in Uganda with visa bans so that they know that there are consequences to promoting homophobia and hatred and transphobia against LGBTI community. Now, target the individuals, not the country. So smart targeted sanctions against these individuals. Deny them access to your country, deny them access to your visas. And that has to be a point that you make, because in diplomacy, a posture is as important as the act of fact that you might want to make. Take the posture that you reject this and do not entertain people who are promoting anti-LGBT sentiment in Uganda. Sanction them.
Merci pour ça. Effectivement, des sanctions, puis ça peut être
Thank
aussi...
you for that. Indeed, sanctions. And we could even include monetary penalties to some extent, sanctions on their fortunes that can be invested outside their country. Mr. Chiré, I was listening to your opening statement in which you told us of the American government's issue that's decided to slash U.S. aid. But that's also a worldwide context right now. We see this in Europe. We have seen Japan drastically cut its international assistance. Unfortunately, the Canadian federal government's budget just came down a couple of weeks ago. $2.7 million will be cut from financial assistance. So, should Canada, rather than following down that pathway, especially given that Canada's presence in Africa wasn't really that strong, should we take advantage, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but should we, let's say, strengthen our presence in Africa via assistance, keeping in mind what our neighbors to the south and countries in Europe are doing and not following down that pathway, especially in Eastern Africa?
Exactly.
We have maximum 1 minute, please. Go ahead.
There is a global recession. I'm also Canadian, Mr. Chair, so equally I'm entitled to speak as like other panelists. The global recession of financial support to non-governmental and international human rights institutions it has been widespread. Not only USA, but also, other countries, because of security challenges they are facing from the war in Ukraine and other places, they start building up their own armament, and the victim all the time is a foreign development aid. But Canada can take a leadership in advocating revamp of that line and bringing, like-minded governments, mostly from the Nordic and other countries, to support, initiatives which are impacting the socio-economic life of the communities. We cannot pretend bringing all LGBTI people to Canada, but where they are, they must be supported to support their families and to support themselves. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You're welcome to the committee, but when we give you time, you have to respect the time also, please. Sorry. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
I'll start with Mr. Opeo. You were speaking a bit about, well, not a bit, a lot, about how more than law, it's dogma that's presented in court. And that the law would provide reprieve, but an ever-present threat of radicalized violence against people by civilians is taking place. Can you tell us a little bit? It seems that ever since this law was passed, that the violence has increased, and it's very extreme. Do these people face consequences, those who take the law into their own hands against those of members of the LGBTQ community?
I have yet to come across a case in which a person who has attacked or perpetrated violence against the LGBTI community is held to account. In many cases where violations have been reported, the authorities have shown no interest in investigating the violations reported, but oftentimes turned around to investigate the LGBTI individual who is reporting a violation against themselves. Organizations have been attacked and set on fire. There has not been any report about the arson in offices of LGBTI organizations. So it seems that there is a blank check. There are no consequences to violations against LGBTI individuals, much less even a commitment to investigate on the part of the authorities. You can't even argue that that is, I think, amounts to tacit approval of these actions, these unlawful actions on the part of individuals. I have done cases where parents have had their daughters raped in the hope that once they are raped, they can abandon being lesbians. These parents face no consequences. Doctors who are doing forced annual exams, there are no consequences to these doctors from the medical association, from the state, and from anybody.
So they're being emboldened when no action is taken against them. They're not only taking the law into their own hands, they're committing violence against fellow citizens. And you mentioned that just on suspicion of them being part of the LGBTQ community, just on suspicion, can you talk to us about that, please?
In the two cases that I cited, these are, one is the oldest university in the country in a male hall of residence. Two individuals who were sharing a room were suspected by their fellow colleagues of being involved in same-sex conduct. The students, one evening, organized, sounded alarms, and descended upon these two individuals in an act to try and lynch them. They're lucky they were not lynched because they ran away and found safety elsewhere. In another school in Western Uganda, the school is called Ntare Secondary School. The same thing happened. These two young boys were never caught in any sexual intercourse. They were merely suspected of being involved in same-sex conduct, perhaps because they were close to each other or they were holding hands. Students in this secondary school did the same thing. In the night, pulled them out of their dormitory and tried to lynch them. They ran into the dark. these attacks have never been investigated. So it's just an appearance of being gay. In some cases, you have been mentioned in a tabloid newspaper. The tabloid newspapers are notorious for outing individuals. Once you're mentioned there, it can easily attract violence. In my own case, I've lost count of the time in which people have attacked me for being a lawyer for the LGBTI community. People have walked up to me and spat in my face when I'm doing my grocery shopping and accused of being an agent of foreigners and promoting foreign interest. And so you don't have to be found in same-sex conduct. Just being suspected can have dire consequences. It is worse for trans individuals. They face the harshest response from society. Most of the cases for evictions and cases of mob violence have been against trans individuals because of the way they dress, because of the transition that they have gone through. People have known you as a man, you have now transitioned into a woman, or vice versa. These individuals face the harshest attacks in our society.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Deren. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I invite Mr. Davis to take the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to commend everybody who's appeared here today. Your courage and your stories are moving to all of us. And as a new member of Parliament, this is a new experience for me to be able to engage with people from around the world who have a story to share, and that Canada needs to hear these stories and recognize the issues that you face. I have to say that I'm not very encouraged today. I'm encouraged that your stories have been made public, but I'm not very encouraged about what I'm hearing going on in East Africa. Mr. Shears said that 98% of the population is homophobic. The government, police, social groups are all buy into the homophobia and promote it. I'm wondering first, Mr. Canary, if you could, or anybody actually, you've spoken about Uganda, South Sudan, and Kenya, but in the rest of Africa, which is obviously a big continent, but if you're moving west, is the same trends happening in other countries?
Thank you so much for that question. I think in Africa we have only South Africa that is somehow LGBTQ friendly. Only South Africa, if I'm to recall well. And South Africa is way too far from Uganda and other neighboring countries in the east. So I don't think one will even find time to run to South Africa to seek safety. You have to cross like over 8 countries to go. And of course, you have to meet challenges along the way and others.
Well, I guess I'm interested in, yes, Mr. Wamala.
Just add on what Canara said. See, the origin of this anti-gay rhetoric is from the same foundation. It's about the same people who are spreading this. That's why you see, if you read the laws that are going up in Uganda, in Kenya, in Ghana, and in all these countries, the wording is the same. So it's the same group of people just sharing the same material all over the place. So it's the same movement moving from one country to another. It's just like a snowball effect.
So, for example, if Tanzania might have the same sort of groundswell of or of homophobia.
It already does.
It does. Okay.
It already does.
Now, Mr. Canary, you had made mention when you escaped to a refugee camp and then found your way to Canada. Was there? Do the camps attract a disproportionate number of gay people because it is perceived to be a zone of greater safety? And if so, how many are currently sitting in camps now that are at risk? Do you have any data on that? And is it disproportionate to other refugees around the world? Because this is a unique situation in Africa, and I'm curious to know about the number of people that could possibly be rescued?
Thank you so much. Yes, as we leave our countries, for instance, I myself, when I left Uganda, I went to Kenya, and Kenya government has an encampment policy whereby all refugees are supposed to live in the camp, with the exception of a very few percentage who can support themselves, allowed to reside in the urban. But for LGBTQ persons, are all supposed to be in the camp.
So you would agree then that there are a greater proportion of LGBTQ individuals that are in camps in Kenya now, and obviously they're at risk for violence. Of the number of people that you are aware of, how many have actually found their way out of? We know the numbers in coming to Canada, but are there any other countries that are providing safe passage for these individuals?
For Kenya, in Kakuma refugee camp in particular, we have around 150 LGBTQ persons, according to some sources on the ground, from refugees themselves. And then in Gorom settlement camp in South Sudan, I know of around 650 LGBTQ persons. And these people in South Sudan, they all left Kenya because Kenya was the first country of asylum. And then they had to run away from Kenya because of too much homophobia, and they went to South Sudan. So in South Sudan, there are around 650, and in Kenya, in Kakuma camp, there are around 150 of them.
So since
Thank you. Merci, Mr. Dave. Time is over. Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe, à vous la parole pour 5 minutes.
Mr. Brunel-Duceppe, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Thank you. Ms. Al-Khatib, it looked like you had something to say. No? Go ahead then, yes.
So what we know is for LGBT Ugandans outside of Uganda, until today, only in 2025, we have more than 300 requests for support. 162 from Kenya and 128 from South Sudan, just to be more clear on the numbers. And of course, these people do not have a clear path to resettlement and protection.
Et ces personnes-là sont dans l'urgence présentement.
And these people are now in an emergency situation where they are now. These are
LGBT people under a lot of distress in 2 camps, be it in South Sudan or in Kenya, where they have no access to registration, no access to health care. They are under constant attack. Their shelters are being burned. They don't have the right to work. They don't have the right to even express their sexual orientation and gender identity. Yes, they are under the top priority cases at risk of that needs to be resettled and that need for sure a path to protection.
On parle beaucoup des personnes qu'il faut aider à se sortir.
Much is being made of these people whom we have to help or who need help to get out of there, brought to Canada or other safe countries as quickly as possible. But I imagine, having lived through these sort of trauma, I would like to hear you, Ms. Al-Khatib, but Mr. Kayamu, after, please. These people who we've managed to get here, resettled in Canada, given the trauma they've experienced, I imagine that there's got to be, I don't know, some sort of support. Once they arrive in Canada, I imagine we can't just sort of bring them in and that's it. They likely need psychological support once they're being here, as they are being resettled, because these people have lived through stress that none of us are even able to understand. The question is for me, yes. And then I would really appreciate having Mr. Kanyamu provide an answer as well after yours. Go ahead, and then
late. Of course, I mean, this is a very, very, very important point. The path to protection is not only resettlement. So it's not only to move a person from danger to Canada where we know it's safe, because the ultimate goal is that Canada becomes their home. For Canada to become their home, there should be a way to support folks who are being resettled through the journey of resettlement. Rainbow Railroad is also has already started working on community support groups, for example, in Canada. But one of the recommendations that we always also try to pass and we voice out to the Canadian government is resettlement organizations in Canada need to be more focused, or need to have the expertise to work with resettled LGBTQI+ people from places where they came with a lot of trauma or they have been persecuted, which we don't see right now. And we are trying maybe to also fill in the gaps through the community support groups that we have. But definitely there's a big need to work on the resettlement component, because it's not enough to just move people to Canada. You need to help them integrate, and you need to be able to have the expertise to deal with people who have been under that kind of trauma.
Sorry. Yeah. And to supplement on Raba's point, we have organizations here like Reaching Out Assisting Refugees on the Vancouver Island. Such organizations help receive refugees. They provide support right from a time a refugee is approved for sponsorship, because they do provide post-arrival support, financial support, psychosocial and whatever services, to when a refugee arrives here. And when a refugee arrives in Canada, he or she is given support for 1 full year. So government could as well maybe help support these grassroots organizations through capacity building, through financial help, because most of the time the funds are from Canadians themselves, like volunteers. We form a group of 10 people to sponsor someone from Afghanistan or from Kenya. So maybe government could help by supporting these grassroots organizations on ground. Yeah.
Madame Vandenberg, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you to all of you for your testimony today. I would like to talk a little bit. Paul, you told a story that is quite compelling and terrible, but I think it will certainly help inform this committee and others in terms of recommendations going forward. I wonder if you've spoken about asylum, you've spoken about the need to make it faster to bring people out of these camps because of the impossible choice between the persecution at home in Uganda or the persecution that happens in the camps. I wonder, I think it was you or perhaps it was Dennis that mentioned a rapid response mechanism. And I'd be very curious to hear more about what that would look like. I know that this committee in the past has recommended a human rights defenders stream of asylum or of immigration. And I wonder what that rapid response would look like. And I open that to anybody who wants to answer.
Firstly, these refugees are registered by the UNHCR, and the UNHCR works directly with the government of Canada and other resettling countries. I'll put Canada in this case in particular. In South Sudan, as an example, refugees can be referred for resettlement. They can be given a priority, because most of these refugees in South Sudan, by the way, I didn't tell this committee, most of them were under the U.S. refugee admissions program. And when the new administration came in, all the resettlement plots got stalled. So they were instead channeled back, and they said, no, we can no longer take you because of these new policies at hand at the moment, including those who had finished medicals, security screening, and all that stuff. So what the committee can do, or what I request the committee to do, is to liaise with the Canadian offices abroad, like the embassies, they can connect with the UNHCR to identify these LGBTQ persons, because there are not many. There are around 650 in South Sudan, around 115 in Kenya, as far as I know. They can refer these cases for resettlement. And then, secondly, similar to this issue, there are refugees who are privately sponsored by the Canadians on ground. Maybe we're sponsoring somebody out there. There are those people who are sponsored. Their cases can be expedited because they already have the support based on ground. We are ready to receive these people, but only that their cases are not flowing smoothly. Yeah.
And I know I'm limited for time. I did want to go to Nicholas and Hassan to talk, and also the Rainbow Railroad, of course, to talk about the importance of global networks of support for human rights defenders that bring human rights defenders from around the world together, both to build support, but also to share best practices and experiences, what works, and to build global coalitions. And I know that the Rainbow Railroad is one such coalition. I'd like to also just quickly go to Hassan and Nicholas about things like the World Movement for Democracy and what that has meant to the work that you do and have done over the years. Nicholas?
Okay, let me start, Nicholas. Global networks for human rights defenders are the ones now who are galvanizing platforms where other human rights defenders defending the rights of everyone, including the LGBTI, being found sanctuary and to voice their voices. As you recall that, Honorable, in Beirut, there was an entire panel where I was chairing, where transgender women from Latin America, from Africa, from everybody was horrifying, testifying the violence, including members of parliament. Tamara, what's happening to transgender academia, transgender person, particularly women, transgender community. So now, as I speak to you, Frontline have galvanized it now, operation which was used to be hosted in the United States by United States government funded, but now the leadership has been taken by Frontline, which are now Lifeline, again reinstituted. But the major contributor of that is a government other than the United States government, and other governments now are chipping in, and now is forming. I'm glad that you advocated this program where human rights defenders, a limited number of them, are being given straight pathway to resettle in Canada. And we know a number of them, and that was what I was trying to infer here. We know a number of them who have been in this program, trained socioeconomically. The moment they landed in Canada, it started the same work they have been trained to contribute to the local economy. LGBTI community are not exception.
Thank you. Thank you. Invite Mr. David to take the floor for 5 minutes, please. Tamara?
So, no, it's. I really appreciate it. I want to just use this last bit of time that I will have to give each of you a chance to make some suggestions about what Canada could do, not just for refugees here, but in Uganda on the ground to help move civil society there and alleviate the need. In our briefing notes for this session, all we have so far is a statement from Canada condemning the situation, and that's in quite stark relief to things that we've done in other countries. And I was just wondering if you could each maybe spend about 45 seconds just sharing your insights on what we could do, and particularly those of you who have experience on the ground. What can Canada do to help make change in Uganda?
Thank you so much, Tamara. Like my colleagues Hassan and Opio have inferred, it's about building a movement. The anti-LGBT rhetoric is being driven by a movement that has been built over time. Canada already has the mechanism, and as a person who lived in Uganda, I worked with the missions in Canada in supporting our movement. It is something we need to strengthen, because when you strengthen the support of the actual movements on the ground, for example, the movement in Uganda was built on support from the feminist movement. So when you continue supporting the civil society organization, which Canada has already done before and just needs to strengthen, it builds a movement, and that movement changes the 98% that Hassan mentioned and starts bringing it down. Coupled with all the other legal things we're doing, we need to support the civil society organizations. That is how we change the rhetoric. That's how we change the perceptions in the country.
Yeah, besides investing in the local civil society groups, I think we've got to think about a thematic approach to this issue, in the sense that human rights is what we are dealing with. Some people think if you say LGBTI rights, you're asking about a new form of rights. We're talking about human rights. So support the human rights movement with a very clear demand for inclusion of LGBTI rights in Uganda. Secondly, there is a void in the global voices around this issue. The US has withdrawn. Canada has the moral voice and the power to lead the campaign globally to shine a light on what's happening in Uganda. You have a leader in power for 40 years with retaining power by means of repression. That repression is what creates a migration crisis and sends people out of our country into yours. Many of these people who are in your country would want to go back to the country. They cannot do so because of the political situation in Uganda. So address that and become the voice for Uganda and for what's happening in the region, in Tanzania, what's happening in the region in South Sudan, in Sudan. Canada can be that voice because he has the moral authority, the clarity of purpose, and the commitment to defend democratic values across the world.
And is there anything that you think we can do to help relieve some of the pressure in the camps?
Yes. Before I answer that, I'll go to your first question, Tamara. Also, Canada, as a great humanitarian country, I understand we champion humanitarian values. Canada gives Uganda more than $2 million in aid. Can there be a pause and we negotiate with the government? We need this. See, such stuff is happening, and there's a lot of human rights violations. In order to continue with the aid, we would like this and this to be done. I don't know if that is practical, but that's just my suggestion. And then to leave, at your point, Tamara, about the camps, yes, it's just a matter of engaging with the governments, hosting government like the government of South Sudan and the UNHCR to track and expedite the resettlement cases of these people so that it can be solved. Because the more they stay there, the more they're going to get attacked, and some of them have been killed so far. It's really so tragic. Yeah.
It certainly is.
Thank you, Mr. Mara. Monsieur Brunet-Dissep, à vous la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Brunet-Dissep, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe this is the last time I will have a chance to hold the floor, so I will leave 1 minute to each witness if there's something that you would like to say anew, that you would like to add. Let's begin with Mr. Shire, then Mr. Opio, then Rainbow Railroad, and then we'll wind up with Mr. Kanyamo, if we may.
For giving me this opportunity, and I'm sorry that I have really become over speaking on that 1 minute. The one thing I want to emphasize is that the numbers Paul and others spoken who are outside Uganda is not the majority of the people who live in Uganda, who are members of the LGBTI community. My recommendation is that let us build the resilience of the artists Mr. Obio have spoken out, who have paths, who have skills, who can produce, plays, who can have a salons, who have a fashion designer. Let us train those young people like any other Ugandan and give a startup capital to remain dignified in their own country and to become contributing person with dignity in their country.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Opio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Opio.
Thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity and thank you for your interest in continuing to support the Ugandan LGBTI and human rights movement. I do not have much to say in conclusion, but just to say thank you, and we look forward to hearing back from you soon.
Thank you so much. I would like to reiterate what my colleagues have said before. We need to make it very difficult and expensive for anti-LGBT rhetoric. A lot of the rhetoric in East Africa or in Africa comes from very many evangelicals in North America. And we need to find a way of showing them that the world is watching and there are consequences for exporting such hate, because that hate then goes and it propagates the already negative attitudes within the country. So we need to make it very difficult and to show people that there might be consequences of spreading this hate.
Et Paul, vous avez le dernier mot aujourd'hui. C'est à vous.
And Paul, you have the final word.
I would like to thank this committee for inviting us to this important session. It really means a lot, and for Canada government, we are forever proud. Thank you so much for showing the world that, yes, we still have people of great value and morals who care about others. And yeah, nothing much to say. I'm just looking forward to hearing from you next time.
Je pense qu'il me reste du temps, Madame Khatib.
I think I've got a little time left. Over to you, Ms. Khatib.
Brief. Just on the question on what can we do to help Ugandan also in Uganda, I would say lean into the partners, the civil society organizations. We have supported at Rainbow Railroad more than 15 organizations so far, and we know that the best way is to let the organizations on the ground, the community itself, decide what it needs. Yes, we need to communicate with them. We need to support them, mainly financially, especially after the big cut that we are seeing around the world. That's number one. Number two is resettlement. I would say the spots. I mean, we need to capitalize on what we have as partnership and help resettle and find protection pathways for at-risk LGBTQI+ from Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Al-Khatib. And me personally, and on behalf of the committee, all members, staff, and interpreter, I would like to thank you all for your presence, for your testimony of the situation on the member of the community of LGBTQA+. Your presence, your explanation, your answering to questions enlighten this committee and give a clear-cut idea about what's going on. Thank you. Thanks for your presence. It is profoundly appreciated. Next week, there will be 30 minutes of committee business following the meeting on internally and externally displaced people across the world. We will be discussing drafting instructions for the report on the human rights situation in Sudan and scheduling the next few months of subcommittee work following the winter break. Please come with the new ideas for studies. If there will be anything to distribute, please send it to the clerk in advance of the meeting. Now, if the will of the committee to adjourn the meeting, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.